This program and its contents are designed for information and educational purposes only. This program does not render medical advice or professional services and is not intended to be a substitute for professional care. The information provided here should not be used for the purposes of diagnosing or treating a medical or psychiatric condition. If you have or suspect you may have a health problem, consult your healthcare provider.
Hi, welcome to Positive Momentum TV. I'm Diane Silva, and today we're going to continue our segments on Alzheimer's, and we have Mike Hughbanks and Debra Hughbanks, and we're going to continue talking and actually get the personal perspectives. Mike shared on the last episode his story, and now we're going to kind of go the feelings, the day-to-day life, and how life before and during Alzheimer's. Again, like we said, we do not identify the Alzheimer's diagnosis with the person. It's Mike who has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and Debra, who is the spouse and a support or caretaker, however you care to label your, add that tag. And we would like to continue to educate and inform and maybe help anybody who's either has a loved one with the diagnosis or a diagnosis yourself, or maybe suggestions or thoughts that, oh my gosh, so maybe if we don't mind, we can really kind of touch on that real quick. Let's say we're feeling a little discombobulated and we're not sure. What would you suggest how to handle if you suspect you may or may not have cognitive memory impairment, meaning whether or not you're overly stressed, but you don't know if it's stress? Can we kind of start there and kind of work our way around?
I think one of the things that I hear a lot, and especially through the blog, people will make the comment that, well, I've really thought something was going on for the last 2 or 3 years, but they waited that long before they actually said something or went to the doctor. And I think that's one of the messages that we've been trying to get out to people. If you think you're having issues with your thought processes, even if you're in your 40s, if you're having problems with your thought processes, or maybe you're forgetting something, forgetting little things, you've got 2 or 3 things on your mind, and then a couple minutes later you can't remember, you need to talk to your doctor, because the earlier that they can detect, the better off you are. The quicker they can get you on a treatment path as far as Aricept that will help your thought processes. And I think a lot of it too is that from people from an employment standpoint even, if we can find out early, get the early diagnosis, a lot of times people they're productive members of society. It's not like once you have a diagnosis, if you're 40s and 50s, that you have to retire like I did. Some people are still able to continue to work. But I think a lot of people just they kind of don't want to know.
It's frightening.
It is frightening. You don't want to hear the A word. It's just like, same thing we're dealing with cancer. People don't want to hear the C word. Well, I think in our case, we looked at it a little differently. I wanted to know what was going on. I needed to know, because you can't fight something if you don't know what you're fighting. I mean, that was my attitude.
Great point. I mean, I know someone who recently, I heard this story from a friend of someone who recently died of a heart attack, and all they were having was severe heartburn, but they refused to go get it checked. I don't want to know. What if I walk in and they tell me that this is it? Well, it's going to be it either, eventually, or well, I'm going to be 60. Well, you're going to be 60 anyway. Hopefully, let's give yourself a fighting chance. It's scary. It's scary any way you look at it. But like you said, you can't fight something you don't know what you're fighting.
Right. And I think for the medical profession too, things have changed a lot especially in the last probably 2 or 3 years, even in the last 5 years. Alzheimer's disease is really coming into the public eye when we're starting to realize more people are being diagnosed and what it's going to the impacts that it's going to have economically to our country. So, but from a personal standpoint, I think it's so critical that people, if they suspicion something's going on, they really need to go talk to their doctor, and they need to push the medical profession. We had to do it a little bit on our part because I think it's easy to always want to blame something else. And in my case, where I'd had a stroke,
Right.
we were blaming the stroke. And you know, we got to a point in time where I realized that this doesn't sound right. There's got to be more going on than this. And then, you know, my doctor finally, the neurologist finally agreed that, you know, there is something else going on. But I think a lot of people, they don't want to know, and and it's fear. They're afraid. They don't want to be sick. No one wants to be sick. But you know, when you start noticing the telltale signs, you know, and that's, again, I would encourage everyone to go to the Alzheimer's website and look at the 10 warning signs. Everyone should know the 10 warning signs. If you're 20 years old, you need to know the 10 warning signs because you have parents and grandparents. Right. So it's something that everyone needs to be aware of. And then, I can't emphasize enough, talk to your doctor.
And even not just from the person who's experiencing the symptoms, the spouses, we notice things before, or even parents will notice things before we notice them ourselves. You know, I look at it when I used to have PMS. By the time I wanted to lock myself in a closet, people have wanted me to lock me in a long time ago. You know? So you kind of know ahead of time. So Debra, we've kind of been focusing on the person with diagnosis. Let's look at it from a family member, support, spouse. What differences did you see? What, you know, and how did you feel about all this? You know, when your fear factor, if you had one, or, you know.
I think some of the earlier things that I can look back and see. Mike and I have been married about 5 years, so I've not known him. We've not raised children together. We haven't disciplined children together. We haven't had a lot of that together. But ours is kind of just the two of us. So how did I see this? It was very innocent, kind of watching television. And he's very quick, very repartee is very quick. And he said, oh, I didn't see that coming. And I would look at him and I'd say, seriously? That's a TV show you're telling me. It was things like that. And looking back, I can see that there were many times that I said to him, we're gonna go do this, or someone made a phone call. And I said, do you remember that? You never told me that. Yeah, I did. Okay. And it happened, I think, a lot more frequently than what we even attributed to at the time. So those are the things that I saw very early on. What I've seen since then, now that we know that there's a diagnosis, I would say he has a tendency to overreact emotionally to some triggers.
Okay.
That now we know what it probably is. We've talked to Dr. Berman about it, and he's very kind. It's like, well, you know, kind of see if you can't rein it in before it gets too bad. Politics kind of gets him going. A football game. And I know people, you know, they want to play the politics, they want to watch it, but he gets too much involved. Okay. And so I probably see it in that respect, but you know, in our life right now, it isn't a huge impact. I would say he's still Mike, and I think for us, we just really want everybody to know that this is the face of Alzheimer's. It's not the elderly woman or elderly man in the nursing home that is just wandering the halls. This is what it looks like. Right. This is your neighbor, and this is what we have to deal with. Now, my neighbor probably is dealing with something else, kidney disease. That's what kidney disease looks like. And so I feel like we just need to be present and be out there because we are part of society like everybody else, and we're not going to go away. I can tell you right now. There's a lot of us. So, yeah, we're pretty vocal about it.
Well, and the point you're making, and please forgive me if I state this incorrectly, is we are not our disease. We are not what's wrong with us. We are not what we're going through. Right. We are who we are. And maybe we are going through something, right. Or like you said, your neighbor with kidney disease, right. or another neighbor who's lost a child, right. or a spouse, right. or, you know, we're dealing with. if we still need the dignity and respect, and we still need that friendship and that connection
Yeah.
and each other. We're not islands. Wasn't it Simon and Garfunkel or whoever it was that saying, you know, we're not islands. We need each other. We need, as John Cougar says, we need a hand to hold on to.
Yeah. And so, you know, Mike's still the one out there mowing the lawn, raking the leaves, you know, shoveling the snow. It's just that now he's home every day, and so he's able to get our neighbor's driveway, different things like that. But, you know, we're basically doing pretty much the same thing. I need to drive in the city. The distraction of, I notice especially in this city, the distraction of things coming from multiple places, the
yes.
buildings, and there's cars over here, and maybe there's a stoplight, or, you know, those things that are coming at you in the city, not a wise thing.
Too much input. It's too much, yeah.
And
Fair enough.
we were talking about home improvement kind of thing, and had someone at the house talking to us about the process of it. And I looked at him at some point because I knew way too many details, way too much information. And after a while, I knew it was probably just going to be, you could see that look in his eye, like, okay,
Deer in the headlight, I can't do this. Yes.
Easily overwhelmed.
very
yeah.
overwhelmed.
Right.
And it's almost a look of like a small child who starts to get scared.
Right.
And
Okay.
you know, I don't know you, and I'm going to back away a little bit. It's a little bit like that. It's a little bit, it's like, this is just, and you can tell with Mike. Now, I don't know if other people see this. He likes to tease me. He's a teaser. We do like to joke back and forth. And you can tell by a look in his eye whether he's teasing and whether it's, I really don't know.
Okay.
I really don't know. There is a blankness to the look. There is a sullenness to it that I identify with. Oh, yeah, he's not tracking.
Well, and that says two different things. It says that you guys are really connected because you can read him. You know what to look for. And there's the difference between a spouse and child. I mean, a spouse or a parent-child. So there's your connection, and the fact that you guys have that wonderful connection, and you are in tune. Because if you can look at him and say, "Oh, you're just joking," or "Oh, wait a minute, we need to kind of backtrack a little bit and find out." Okay, I know what you need. Being able to read that is a wonderful skill to have.
We pretty much talk. Well, obviously we have a lot of time together with each other.
Right.
He's home, our desks are facing each other, and he's a talker, I am not, but he pretty much tells me everything that's going on with him. I can retain it, many times he can't. And so we have that trust back and forth. I'm kind of a gut check sometimes. And again, this is early onset. We're not talking about enormous amount of time, but he knows that I will always tell him the truth. And if there is a moment, he can look at me and I can see in his eye he needs to have that. So I think those are the things that I see with Mike today. But, generally, he's still down in the kitchen. He's helping with dinner. He's, doing the things that he's just Mike. He's my bud.
So how has this diagnosis, as well as just the lifestyles that are changing, even from going from work every day to being at home every day, how has that impacted how you feel, your life and how you feel? I know it could be good, it could be bad, it could be nothing. Like you said, you're still connected.
Yeah.
And you guys have great communication and a great relationship. And that's wonderful. Well, I guess what I'm trying to find out is, for those of us who aren't sure how to, you didn't know till you got here.
We didn't know. Yeah.
So if you were going to give somebody kind of a little bit of a snapshot of what it could be like, or how you felt, because nobody knows how they're going to feel till they're there.
I know early on when we met up with each other after a lot of years of not knowing each other. I'm an introvert. I enjoy being with people, and but I could go days without seeing people. Mike is not. He is definitely an extrovert, and very early on, knowing that he was going to be home all day, this is not the only face he needs way more than I can provide.
Right.
And so I encourage him a lot to get out there, and I don't go with him to all of the events that he goes to. He still is capable of getting in the car. Usually someone comes and picks him up, and he does these things on his own. So he needs it a lot more than I do. So speaking of the community effort, he definitely needs a lot more of that than that. This person isn't going to give him everything that he needs in his world. It just isn't possible.
So basically, what we're talking about is not just taking care of the person with the diagnosis and your spouse, but you also have to take care of yourself and make sure your needs are met as
Right.
well. You know, you're the extrovert, you need that to charge yourself, you need that other human contact, where you to recharge maybe need downtime.
Absolutely.
You know, so if you're so busy taking care of him, you're not taking care of you.
Right.
And if he's so busy taking care of you, you know, he's unable to do what he needs to do.
Right.
So it's really a point, I guess what I'm trying to say here is, and we said this on our first show, is to make sure you cover what you need to do. Take care of yourself first, because you can't fill somebody else's bucket if your bucket's empty.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's that balance, and that's why there is a village, and that's why there are other people and communities and websites and blogs and the Alzheimer's Association, your doctor. You know, reach out wherever you're comfortable reaching out to.
The first time that we walked into the Alzheimer's office, I was very scared. I will tell you, I was extremely scared of what our future looked like, and all I could see was the future. I couldn't see my moment.
Okay.
All I could see was that end of the road, and I was scared to death.
I bet.
We sat in the Alzheimer's office, and there's brochures and there's booklets that just surrounded me, and instantly I felt better. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. So I felt instantly better by going in there and seeing the people that work there. So it just keyed me in on, I live my life today. I can't look at how we're going to be tomorrow even. It has to be at this moment. And at this moment, we're fine.
And this really goes with an embrace that uncertainty thing. The one I'm really working toward, you know, this whole wholeness thing. And one of the things I was reading when they're talking about embracing uncertainty, if you want certainty, you have to look back at yesterday. Right. That's the only thing that's certain, because you can't change yesterday. You know, you don't know what you don't know. You know, we don't know how many candles are going to be on our last birthday cake. Right. We don't know, you know, if we're going to walk out and get hit by a bus. God forbid we don't, but you know. Mm-hmm. So when we're kids, when we're babies, you know, we're going to get up and walk, and we're not going to know if we're going to be able to take the steps or we're going to fall on our bum. Embracing that uncertainty, using that childlike, you know, and taking that village, saying, okay, hold my hand till I can walk. Mm-hmm. Or going to the Alzheimer's Association and they're saying, how are you doing? Not what can you do for us, what can we do for you?
And it's exactly that way.
You know, mm-hmm. And I think it's wonderful that you are willing to share your stories. And I'm going to ask the same thing they did, and I'm copying them. How are you two doing? I mean,
I think I'm doing great. That's kind of, you know, when we first started down this road, I started putting on the bottom of my emails, today's the best day of my life.
That is wonderful.
And I think that's how we have to look at it. As far as my average day, I have to work at things a lot harder. Mm-hmm. If I have a speaking engagement, it will take me a while to prep for it. And I kind of, I guess, liken that to back in the business world where I might have had 4 or 5 meetings a day. I had all of these things, you know, going on. Well, it might take me just to get myself motivated to know what I've got to do for this one, you know, speaking, this 6 o'clock speaking engagement. It might take me all day to do that, where In my former life at work, I had to do that 6, 7 times a day. Well, there's no way I could do that today.
Right.
But I think from a stress standpoint, my stress is very, very minimal compared to what it was before. Once we got home, I went on FMLA. It's just, and it wasn't, I had a wonderful job and I loved my employer. I loved where I worked. I thrived on it.
Right.
But I think physically I got to the point where I knew I couldn't do that anymore. But daily life, we've kind of got our daily routine. We get up, read the newspaper, make coffee, and then we kind of plan our day. The things we may have errands to run. Debra belongs to a knitting group that she actually loves that meets once a week, part of her alone time or her time away from me. And I respect that. I mean, I know that she has her time, that she needs to be able to do things that she enjoys too. Her life is not all about taking care of me, although I know she's there and I have implicit trust in her. And if she says, Mike, maybe you shouldn't do this, or I know immediately, okay, because she is my gut check. And I think a lot of people, I feel fortunate that I've got that, my support system. I've got Debra, I've got 2 sisters, and my kids. Everyone is 100% supportive.
Well, and you mentioned, her being your gut check. One of the things is your ability to be able to allow her to be your gut check. You can trust somebody implicitly, but you're not ready to relinquish that. Okay, no, you don't know it. That control.
That's hard.
It's hard.
That was extremely hard for me because at work, I was the decision maker.
Right.
I'm the one that told other people what to do. They don't tell me that I can't do this. You tell me I can't do something and I'm going to do it. And I'm going to show you how.
I get you there.
So, but again, I think that's part of the respect and the trust that we have for each other, because I understand the situation that I'm in. And I know right now, unless there are like major breakthroughs, I know that my life is going to continue to decline. That's Alzheimer's disease. Yeah. So I have to put my trust in Debra to be making decisions for me. And right now, she's my gut check. I mean,
it doesn't happen that often.
It doesn't, but there's certain things. We pay bills together now. I used to take care of all the finances. That's something that we do together. She does most of the driving. I go to the grocery store on my own, because I go to the same grocery store and I have my list and I know exactly what I need to get, but I have to have a list. I can't do it from memory.
Right.
But I can drive places, and I do fine as long as I know where I'm going. And if I have a speaking engagement and I am going by myself, we will go there the day before. We'll drive the route, I know where I'm going, and then there's no issues.
And that's wonderful to be able to pre-plan, to be able to find a routine and a way to trust yourself, your environment, your partners, your support. And like you said, the toughest part is relinquishing that control. And that's the one thing I think every one of us struggle with, because from the time we could finally potty train, we were independent. We took care of ourselves. Yeah. How many babies want to still be fed? They'll make a big mess.
Oh, absolutely.
We learned from a very, very young age to be independent and take care of ourselves. And giving up that control, no matter what the reason, your back goes out. You're laying on the bed, I don't know how many times, sorry kids, I've had to have them help me use the restroom, or, God forbid, wipe me. I mean, that is, it's hard.
It's very difficult.
So,
And he's a take charge person.
Well, yeah, you used to basically help run a company. How can you not, we're decision makers. We're decision makers at work.
And it isn't my personality to take charge of anything. I don't like doing it.
So you're challenged as well. He's challenged with giving up control, and you're challenged with taking it. And you kind of go, oh man, and it can be frightening and challenging, I guess is the best word I want to use. So okay, we're about out of time for this segment. Is there anything, especially on the Debra standpoint, is there anything you could would like to get out there for other caregivers, spouses, support, anything?
I know from other support groups that I've been to that questions are raised about what got you to the Alzheimer's organization to begin with. And I can understand that moment of realizing that you're dealing with Alzheimer's either with yourself or with your spouse or your family member. It is really a valuable place to go. Even if you decide you're not going to do a whole lot with them later on, it is absolutely valuable. And I encourage people to reach out to them in some aspect for their own peace of mind. And the other thing that I hear about, because we haven't been married very long, and I think that we're going to see more of that with couples that divorce is that much more, and we're seeing more younger onset. The question is, are you in it for the long haul? And I think that's a very fair question for people to raise between themselves and as a family, and understand that what Mike and I have, obviously I'm long haul kind of a person, but I think these are kinds of things that are fair questions to raise, privately with your family.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Deborah. You've been wonderful. I look forward to having you guys back. I know, Mike, you'll be back with Elizabeth from the Alzheimer's Association, and Deborah, anytime you have any input, please, we would love to have you on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, I can't thank you enough. It takes great courage and compassion and understanding, and it's a rough road. And thank you very much for watching Positive Momentum TV. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Have a great day.